2.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another live CTF round. We've got challenge 5 wrap up. It's me, Cyphertex, and
Hello, I'm Seda 2.
Zeta 2, and Carl's here. So I'm back in my original hotel room, been bouncing around here on holiday with my family, but it's working out. It's working out. So this one was probably a little bit bumpier than certainly we intended. This is the challenge we mentioned on the last stream that had an issue with it, and I'll talk through that and kind of explain what it is. But first, let me just sort of show the challenge, what the source code looks like, and we'll kind of talk through that. So this is a terrible challenge, by which I mean I wrote it all with AI, like lots and lots of AI, and it was sort of intentional. One of my goals was to make it like big and kind of messy, and I wanted lots of different unintended solutions. And I thought the best way to do that was just to let an AI write it and constantly keep prompting it and add more content. So you'll notice it's a fairly large file for really what it is, which is a multi-level model marketing challenge. So this was also a play on words for like multi-level marketing, but also LLM was kind of meant to be sort of like wrapped in the name. And the idea was that you were training, uh, an agent or a model to do advertising for you. Also, this MLM marking, it did ASCII art. This is my favorite part. Hold on, let's actually like run the challenge here real quick. Um, so if I actually let's see. Oops. If you actually connect to the challenge and it says MLMM marking or marketing, it didn't even spell it right, which I was so happy with when I saw like how bad it was. It's very slop. It's very like also the M is redundant because it appears there. It also appears there. It's perfect. It's exactly what I was hoping for. So like you enter your name and you get a little menu. There's a lot of different options here. You can train like this agent. The agents will actually make money for you. They'll hire like downstream agents when they like make profits, and you get them like an advertising campaign. So there's kind of like a lot of features. It was also meant to be a big challenge because I wanted specifically it to not be. I wanted well, the original goal was to actually have all of the symbols in the binary wrong and lies so that if you fed it into a machine learning model and asked it to solve it, it would do so badly because it was like subtly off. And then the sort of like the moral of the story was like, yeah, you can't trust uh, LLMs. And then that was gonna be like a very meta reference because the challenge itself was about like scamming people with an advertising campaign for like shady products. Anyway, long story short, that didn't work well because the challenge was just so big that the models didn't do well with it anyways. Just when testing it and trying to get them to write solutions and seeing how they did, it was sort of like knowing a valid solution. And so it turned out that wasn't necessary at all. I've gone back and forth in terms of being like an AI skeptic or fan, and this was a kind of a little bit of a low point. I felt like it didn't do super well. But so like you can see you can like hire an agent. You have a sort of budget. You give it a name, and then you can give it create an ad campaign. Now the interesting thing is when you create this campaign, um, you give it a budget, and so I've got $300, so let's give it $100. We choose a region, and then you pick the product that you want to sell in that region and the agent you want to have, and then you have to give it ad copy. And this is where one of the sort of like there's a couple like key challenges you have to figure out, and this is one of them right here. So the ad copy just takes 5 words. It's going to sort of be used in its marketing. But if we actually look at the source code, you'll see what it's really doing here is this analyze campaign sentiment. And just for reference, the symbols were left in. Like I left in the symbols and didn't change them. I didn't give full debug information, but you can see like in the binary as it was distributed, you can tell like it's just going to run this Python this sentiment.py. And so this uses the NLTK library. This is actually where the bug was that caused problems. But the whole point of this thing was given 5 words, like measure the sort of like positive or negative sentiments of it. And
That's
so,
that's exactly how marketing works, right? You do
right?
5 positive words and then
5 positive
uh,
words. So and I will say this one, again, 100% AI generated. Like, you can tell too because of the copious amounts of comments for things that are incredibly obvious, I feel like is, one of the dead giveaways. But actually, this one I think was to me this is like the right size. Like this style of like give me a couple hundred lines of Python or like 1 or 200 lines of Python, honestly pretty great. Like it did exactly what I wanted it. I wanted like it scaled a certain way. I could describe like the range of possible outcomes. Technically, it was supposed to be able to get to 100%, I think, but it never did. So I don't know if there's an off by one in there, but it was close enough, right? I wanted like a range of like 50 was like neutral, one was like all terrible negative words, and then 100 was like really really good. And then you would scale the profits, accordingly in the actual challenge. Like so, when you check the sentiment analysis, it would do that. There was also this additional check here um, to so where was it? Yeah, you had to have exactly five. It was and it stripped down the characters in each word, so it was just alphabetic characters, and that was kind of the idea there behind that. So that was sort of one of the like little mini challenges in this was you had to kind of figure that out, or at least that was the intention. It turned out you could just give it a couple of happy words and it would be fine. We'll see some of the teams and what they did yeah, in a second. So there was also a cache because this was really slow, and so we realized that early on, if teams figured out optimal ad campaigns, if you wanted to make different campaigns, you would, or even if you're running the same campaign over and over, we wanted it to be faster. And so this did use a local cache, or if you did the same words, it wouldn't have to use the slow library to figure out like the score. It would cache that locally. The real bug, though, the thing that caused problems when we deployed this on the infrastructure was this local data model. So this library will download like the local data that it needs. So I actually could probably go grab that over here. Let's see. Oops. So you can see it makes this data folder where it downloads these corpora and this like these files are needed um, for the analysis to run. But I think, and this again, maybe like AI bug or maybe something else, but it only really needed WordNet, and so because it kept trying to download and would fail to download Vader is maybe one of the reasons why it didn't work. We also thought then if we just commented those out, it would work. It didn't. Anyways, so anyway, for whatever reason, when we ran this on the live infrastructure, instead of just using the cache data and being totally offline, it kept trying to download this data even while it was in the offline mode, and so it would have to wait until it timed out. And so the unintended side effect of that was the official solution, the way it was intended to be solved, was you play the sort of full game, you optimize your values, you have to figure out the sentiment analysis, figure out optimal words, and go through that. And that was not possible, so it made it a little harder than it was intended. You could still get through like one day, but you couldn't make it through a full sequence sort of before the timeout would run out potentially. So that was the sort of bug that we were actually in the process of fixing when we discovered it when our internal testing showed that our solution wasn't working. And then Team Null submitted a working solution. And so sort of like in like, CTF best practices, like when that happens, you got to roll with it. Like it was proven solvable by one team. They solved it even if it was harder than it was intended. You can't now penalize them for figuring out the hardest solution. The bar has been raised. That's the new difficulty level essentially. And thankfully 8 other teams were able to solve it. So in the end, we ended up with 9 solves, which was a perfectly kind of reasonable. That's like, I'm trying to remember in past years, Carl, do you remember like, I think that tends to be like, we've had ones that were even harder that only had like 4 or 6 or, like fewer solves. And then
Yeah.
obviously we've had ones of like 40 or so, but like that feels like kind of in the mix for previous solves.
Yeah, it's in the low end for this year, but it's not an outlier. I think we had one of the other challenges this year with only like 8 or 9 solves as well. So it's like we would have, hoped to have more solves, but it's not, it's not bad. Like if there would have been only like one solve, then maybe we would have been a little bit sad. But I think this is
Yeah.
seems to have figured it out.
Yeah, it worked out in the end. It's I'm sad as an author that like it didn't kind of quite go the way that I intended, but like it really from a gameplay perspective, I think was totally fine because there were sort of as expected other bugs. It turned out that teams found. So here's the official solution. You can see. Well, actually, this is two. So I wrote one again, AI slop, and it was terrible. It was so bad that that Glenn rewrote it when he was QAing the the problem. But the overall like approach is basically you the agents had a skill level. The campaigns had their words that give it like certain positive sentiment would get you like a higher multiplier, and then there was also the 5 regions that you were in, and the 5 regions had a different weighting that was randomly generated each time you launched the the program. Technically, you could have also figured out the random seed with a timestamp potentially on connection and like tried to figure it out that way. So that was another like viable way that I don't think I saw anybody do. And the reason that they didn't is because there was actually a better way to do that. You could instead, um, let's see, menu item 9 asks you for the debug password, which was really just in the binary. You could like look in. There's this like obvious comparison here where like is check it just straight up checking for this password, right? And so if you give it that password, that would give you the region information. So it just told you, and ironically, I had forgotten that this was in here. Like the AI had added all this functionality. So my first version, I wrote a solution that didn't even use this. It actually would go, it would create 5 different campaigns with like $1 each in each of the regions, step one day, look at the results, and like figure out which region was the most profitable. And you still had enough days to like put all your money basically and roll it back into a campaign in that region. So in this case, like the South region is the most profitable. But like my solution did it sort of experimentally when you could also just pull it out of this debug menu, which I thought was funny that I kind of forgot about this. That was there. There was also a shell thing, which is just a troll because it doesn't actually run. And the AI did, by the way, I think I told you this, Carl. It kept turning it back on. Like I was playing with like different passwords, hashings, or debating like other like bugs for instead of just a strict like password match. And every time I did that, it would be like, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna uncomment the code that commented out the shell. And like, stop it. Like it kept trying to like make this backdoor shell like a valid
Oh,
thing. And I was like, no,
the
I
AIs
don't
are
want
adding
that.
backdoors to our code. This is, scary development.
Well, if if you start with a backdoor that's commented out because it says it's a bad password, and then you fix your bad password hash, they're like, "Oh, clearly now you want the backdoor to be enabled," and they will turn it back on. So, like, multiple times I had to so finally, I think I just removed it, but even the context of, like, it being in the menu was enough to be like, "Oh, maybe I should re-add this functionality." You're like, "No, stop it. Bad bot." So that was the other method that again we'll see teams that did. So like for example, let's see, is this the null? Yeah. So here's null. This is again the kind of first solution, and this is the one like I said made us go okay. Well, I guess we're not going to change anything. Like the challenge is sort of solvable even if the full solution we wanted is not. And this was also the most concise. Like I was looking at this going like, wait, what did they do? But you can see here there's one other thing that I haven't talked about yet, which is this part at the beginning which I glossed over, which this is basically the actual vulnerability here was the name function. This is kind of a classic thing, right? A lot of CTF challenges will have some sort of game mode where there is a buffer overflow or a form of string bug or something in your name. And so you actually have to first connect to it with your name with a certain amount of padding and then an offset. And so you can see in this case, it goes to actually the win function right here. And so that's just going to call the submitter for you directly. Actually, I think this is an older build of the binary that I'm looking at. It changed slightly. We changed that to an exec v. But
Yeah, and the
yeah,
reason we did that is, to just make it easier for the players, because if you just overwrite the return address just to something that calls
yeah,
system, you will get the stack unaligned, so it's no longer 16-byte aligned. And then because system actually depends on this because it uses XMM instructions, it will crash. But if you change it to an exec, it will be fine, even though you're technically violating the ABI, it will still work. So it's just like a
yeah,
convenience
it's a
thing.
little more forgiving. That
Yeah.
was one thankfully like Carl caught and pointed out when I was testing it, and so that we like I said, this was I accidentally opened up an older version of the binary here, but that's one of the very few changes I think. So everything else should basically be. So actually, yeah, the other thing we can just do is just check the source code. We can see. Am I in the right one? Oh, that's right. No, we changed it so it didn't even call submitter. I believe it calls binsh too.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh no, no, this version. Never mind. I think Glenn. Oh, it looks like Glenn changed it back to bin bash.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that was the other thing, to manually align the stack is the other
Yeah.
option. So that was what we went with
I
in the end.
it's entirely possible I, like, didn't push my exec VE change because I did have it
Yeah.
at one point in there. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's why the current solution does just, get you a shell, and then all the teams would call bin stations in there, or call submitter rather in it. So, like I said, here is, null's first solution. So they're setting their name to be just the padding of A is, like, 56 decimal, and then the win function, um, right, that would add to there. And then this is they're hiring an agent. They're giving it the name A. Then they're going back out to the main menu. They're creating an ad campaign, um, calling it B, budget of one, region one, and then oh, interesting. So they're using the keywords of AV, and I'm always curious to like go see what the sentiment is. I don't think it mattered on this because what they did next is the interesting part. You could set a negative budget, and actually, I ran into this a couple points that there were ways to get negative budgets or negative results. What I didn't play around with is how you would then use that to win the thing. So basically, it didn't really matter. It didn't matter the cost. You could do it in far fewer days. You didn't need to do the full run, which is what let you win it, even with the constraints of the timeout on the offline. And so then they would do it with this negative budget, and then there's like they're incrementing 2 days because they're wanting it to roll over, presumably. And then once you've got positive money, you could step forward. And then which one was P? Yeah. So which one? Which menu choice was P? Um, Yeah, so they're pausing that campaign, the actual ad campaign itself. You can pause and unpause. So they're actually pausing that one campaign, and then they run forward, and then all they had to do was get it to realize that the budget was large and positive over 50,000, and that's gonna trigger their name and then pop them into the shell, which then they're gonna run the submitter and get the flag. So I love that there was both the fastest and also like the fewest lines of code. This was like the most minimal solution. So good job to them. We had a couple other ones. So Cold Fusion had one that's just similar. Again, you can see they're going for large negative, large positive. So that was the more consistent. Oops, where's the rest of mine? Um, so okay, yeah. So there was a couple other ones in here I wanted to kind of look at real quick because I think some of them, yeah, you can see some of them actually did solve out like the sentiment analysis and go for like these are 5 words that will give you a very high score. I think in our official solve, um, the words that Glenn used were "good product, please buy it," which was pretty great. The one that I used had like abbreviations like ILY because I actually wrote like a solver that would actually optimize and find solutions, and I wanted really short ones. But there was one I'm actually curious. I want to see if anybody else um, in the audience who watches this, if you could figure out like why each of these are very high positive on sentiment. So this is I think love ya, ideal, sure, best, and I love you. But this is the one 2G, 2B, 4G. It must mean something positive, or at least it's shown up. So that's one that I don't know why it has very high. The other thing is it too the way that the sentiment analysis worked. If the words were too similar to each other, so it had to be both positive but also like slightly different. So if you just said perfect, ideal, optimal, best, like the score would not be as high as if you did lovely, perfect, right? Because they're both very strong positives, but they were not quite the same as each other. So there was a little bit of subtlety there, but again, you could kind of not worry about that. But good product, please buy it was another one.
So Google tells me that 2G, 2B, 4G stands for too good to be forgotten.
Oh, look at that. I should have just Googled it.
Uh,
That makes sense.
it's yeah. My source is netlingo.com.
Ah, it sounds
Uh,
legit to me.
there are a bunch of other hits for this as well.
So
Too
this
good
is
to be forgotten.
interesting. Did they actually get a memory leak?
Um, so stack leak, yes. Oh, is it like that some is it like an
Uninitialized variable?
uninitialized variable that
It
gets
looks like
printed
it.
as
The
like
stock itself, the stock count. I don't know why you need it though. That's
stack
fascinating. I didn't
leak?
even.
do they use it later in the solution? No.
No,
Okay. So
they're just
they
showing off.
no.
It's just
I
like,
mean,
yeah,
I
also,
I assume that they were working and
I
just
think
you're
they found it.
you're grabbing
Yeah.
every bit of information and like maybe we need this, so let's incorporate it into the source
I
script. Uh,
absolutely love it. No, I think it's great that they did. And again, this is a good example where, like I said, I knew there were going to be other solutions, or I knew there would be other things. It turned out that that wasn't necessary for the solve. But that's hilarious that they literally, is it you do a blank one? I'm not sure. Yeah,
so
actually, I'm
it's
really curious now.
what is
I set the
V?
campaign. V was
Uh,
the view
view
campaigns.
campaigns. Oh, and then you just leave the and you send the blank. Can you try to do that? Like view
Yeah.
campaigns and then
So
just
if I, well, first I hire a downline agent, and then
yeah.
I go create a campaign.
Let's try that. That's kind of cool if that's
Yeah. Select my
and then
agent.
you just view campaign, but you leave the
Let's see. Hold on. How did they
no. Oh, view
1111
cam-
campaign?
uh, hmm, value.
Maybe
So basically, the value of the campaign ends up being a leaked value in some situation. Basically,
I wonder if,
uh,
oh, I see what they did. No, 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 no. One, I selected yeah, yeah, yeah. So hold on. Edit the
you
campaign. I
select
wonder if I
like
can do it this way.
into the
This
product.
campaign. Oh wait, zero
You
cancel.
create
Edit campaign, edit that one. Widgets one. No. Yes. Product one. It may only be on creation though, too. So if I
uh-huh.
create a new campaign, V or V,
Or is it?
one, agent one,
So you should have
5.
chosen. You should have
Oh, did I
chosen.
do the product? You're right.
Yeah,
Sorry, I did
yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah.
that's, I'm still sleepy, I guess. One. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Now, product one is product
Yeah.
ID. Select the agent. Yeah, that is good. There we
Ah,
go. Very cool.
nice, nice.
Yeah. And the product name
Okay.
itself is also
Uh-huh.
yeah, it makes sense.
Ah,
So
that's
like you
really
can
cool.
dereference a string pointer. Yeah.
Yeah,
I I don't think that's the only ones. I suspect there are more. Again,
yeah,
it's terrible code. It's very much bad code.
yeah.
So good job to Team Viewer for finding a little bonus fault in there. But you can see most of the other teams, I think, yeah, had similar ones where they found the negative, positive um,
Mhm.
budget, and so that was again another good solution. So gotta love the teams that just straight up like spammed a whole bunch of stuff without even receiving it. They're like, YOLO it, it'll be fine. It's just let it go. Hard coded the solution. So good for them. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was a challenge. So I just want to check the scoreboard again here. Okay, MMM is back up. I noticed that Null had briefly jumped to the top, but now Super Code and MMM are back up above them. So good battle happening on here. And so again, congrats to some of the teams that are getting points in live CTF. That will hopefully help them out. Again, I think we commented on the last stream that Macaroni, by getting like the fastest solve, had a couple of really good points um, that may have helped them out. And as well, we were talking earlier, Carl, about like pre-qualifications, right? So MMM is pre-qualified from here from winning last year,
From winning last year, yeah.
but then these teams, and then Blue Water was the winner of Plaid CTF. So these three, I don't see Calmar Union, FMC, or Wrecker
No,
Pig, but they
so
could also be like,
Kalmar Union are playing, but they said that they're not playing at full force, so you will see them like down
yeah,
they're on 20 something place. Like there's like some
yeah,
people from the team that yeah,
yeah,
uh
makes sense.
they're just kind of, chill playing it.
Fun fact, DEF CON CTF like 20 years ago, if you were pre-qualified and yet you played under your original qualifying name again and you didn't qualify, the rules officially said you lost your and so like teams are like,
Well,
"This is stupid. We're just gonna make up a temporary team name so we could still play
uh,
with less effort," until the
yeah.
organizers were like, "Yeah, maybe that was a terrible rule and makes no sense." And so they actually, yeah, it was like a Kinshasa rule at one point, and so I had to kind of walk that one
And
back.
I also just want to recap the numbers. So for this MLMM, we
Yeah,
had
yeah,
9 solves, and we are about an hour and a half into our last challenge, no F in
yep,
the stack, which currently sits at 11 solves.
nice,
So pretty nice to
perfect.
see solves coming in there. We're gonna take a look at them in our final stream. And important thing here for those who are following along in our program is that the last stream will not be offset by an hour relative to the challenge transition point, and instead we will do the stream right when the final challenge closes. So that is in two and a
2.5
half
hours. Yep,
2.5 hours from now. So that's 1 hour earlier than this kind of like regular interval that we have been
yeah, yep.
going at.
We had these 4-hour
Um,
gaps, but this will be a shorter one.
mhm. And again, if you bring up the scoreboard again for the actual, yeah. So as we said, as far as we understand, unless Rekapig is in part of one of these teams in the tops, which I'm pretty sure they're not. If I think I recognize all of these teams, that means that currently the qualification cutoff is in at 8th place. So Macaroni qualifying but never stop exploiting not qualifying.
Yep,
Uh,
and that's based on
but
the top, yeah, ones here.
Right. So there are 12 teams minus the 12 teams in the finals minus the 5 who are already pre-qualified. So the top 7 except MMM are already qualified, so they don't count. So therefore you need to be in top 8 at the moment.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So
And
but
that could
we
change. For
still have
example, Blue
like
Waters here within striking
yeah,
distance, if they pop up, right, that would drop they wouldn't actually take somebody else's spot, right? So or
exactly.
FMC as well, right? They were also on the
Yeah.
list.
That said, there are still 14 and a half hours left of the qualifiers, like a third of the qualifiers still remaining. So there's still room for things to happen.
Yep.
Um,
But no more after 2.5 hours, no more live CTF points to
no
be
more live
done. So
CTF. You don't have to endure our
our
experiments.
shenanigans. Yeah.
I hope you've had it. I have had some fun solving these challenges, and yeah, I think things have been running fairly smooth. There was this little small thing with this challenge, but other than that, seems to have been holding up. So
Thankfully, it
I'm
was still
relieved.
solvable. Thankfully, we're still a very reasonable solution that a lot of teams found. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's I hope that's our worst problem. And so
yeah, um, yeah. Cool. Yeah, thanks, Jordan, for the walkthrough. You will probably not, but maybe
yeah,
potentially be here
I might
for
be
the
on the
wrap up.
car on my phone for the last one. We'll see if
Yeah,
somebody else can join Carl. We can wake one of our East Coast folks up to join us for the last
yeah.
stream.
We had a little bit of staffing challenges this weekend, unfortunately, but
We had
yeah,
a lot of people with planned events. Yeah.
I will be here for the last stream, talking about no F in the stack and doing a general wrap up of the live CTF for this year. But I think that's all for us for now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Goodbye.